Morning, everybody. Today I'm here to talk about a more frequently asked question recently about the brake bias sort of adjustment and the brake force curve. So what I've done in iRacing is under my options here, there is a force factor right here for your brakes. What this does is sort of acts as an intermediary between your pedals and the sim. And I'm not sure a lot of people understand what's going on here, but I have some forum posts and some graphs and a cool thing that Bob Samuelson did that I'll show you what's going on here. And the reason why I have it set to 5. So if we go into the forums, there's a post in here that David Tucker put in that shows a graph. And what this graph basically represents is the relationship between your brake pedal input and the resulting output that the sim sees. So this being your brake pedal input across the bottom, and this being the output. The default iRacing is 1.8, and a lot of people who have direct drive wheels will run a 1.0, and there's lots of conversation on the forums about what you should use. So originally, I started out with my brake force factor because I have a Driving Force GT. When I started, I was in the recommended range, 1.8 to 1.2 down here. And when I moved to a G27, it pretty much stayed the same because the pedals are more or less the same. And I don't have a Bodner cable that goes between my pedals, so my brakes and pedals are not super. They're probably the lowest you'd probably want to get. So what's the deal with this, and why am I talking about this on the forums? Well, here's why. If we go back over to the forums here, Bob Samuelson has a really great chart that you can use to look at this. So the link to this is actually, by the way, before I go any farther, is in the iRacing API Development and Discussions Forum under Side Notes, and it's on page 12. And if you scroll down here, you'll see this is usually an indicator that I know I'm close, that video, and then it's right below it. I also happen to have this page pinned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when you basically slide the slider in here from 1 over to 5. So I've clicked on Bob's link here, signed into my Google account, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down here to 0.01, I think. Oops, I can't be clicking things while I'm typing numbers because of my numlock. I have this program called Joy2Key, and every time I push a button, that number 8 allows my OBS to record my push to talk. So every time I hit that, my numlock goes on and off. Sorry about that. Hang on here. Anyway. So with 0.01, you can see this is the curve for the adjusted versus the raw. So there's no adjustment taking place here. It's 0. So you put in a 1 and it starts to add a curve in here. Now watch what happens when I put in 5. So my understanding of what's happening here is that this makes the brake application allow you to use a lot of pedal before it applies a lot of brake, and then the last part of your pedal is pretty much really steep. So you'll have it'd be like putting a cam on your mechanical pedal where you could use the first 30% of the pedal and it would only apply like half of the actual brake at the actual brake pads. So it allows you to have a really long pedal throw and not a lot of brake application until you get past a certain point, and then it's like bam, all brakes. So this takes a lot of adjustment to get used to if you're coming from this. because this is a pretty linear application, right? So when I go from this and braking, so when I start braking, it's going to be pretty consistent. There's a little bit of a shallow spot here, but more or less this is a consistent brake application. This is not consistent at all, so it's quite a bit of pedal, not a lot of brakes, quite a bit of pedal, not a lot of brakes, and then right about in here, all of a sudden the brakes start coming in like crazy. And the reason I do this is so that I can trail brake like crazy on entry and on exit without getting a lot of brake application. So in the sim, I got that by setting this to 5. Now, I don't have a setup for Pocono yet because I'm just way behind. But what the hell? I think we can just use Charlotte anyway. So watch down here, my pedal should show up down in this lower corner over here. When I brake, you can't see my pedals, but I'm going to walk you through about how much pedal I'm actually applying down here, and you're going to see it's applying very, very, very little brake. So this is full brake, and that right there is about 75% of my pedal, maybe 80%, something like that. But down here, this range down here is I get 0. This is like 0 pedal, and then all the way I get tons and tons and tons and tons of pedal, and then finally between here and here it goes like crazy on the brake. So when I go into this corner here, I can just use like 20% of the pedal and only get that tiny little bit of brake down there. That's like 20 to 30% brake pedal. And if you look at the telemetry on that, it'll actually show you that could be even less. I haven't even been on New Pocono yet. So that's like half my pedal right there. And look at the brake that's showing up. Charlotte setup isn't super horrible. I might use this for Pocono. So again, this is where the brake comes in handy. Let's see if I can just knock this thing loose. It's too tight. Too tight. See me dragging the brake right there and stepping on the throttle? Totally stabilizes the car. So I'm just going to grab I'll go around the corner here and do a burnout and show you how this brake is really effective. The other thing I'm going to mention since I'm in here, I've been talking about the last 10 to 20% of throttle, which is where all the traction goes away. It acts like iRacing said, this last 20% or 10% of throttle, we're just going to take tons of grip away. So watch this. So everything's fine right here, and then you can hear the RPMs just ramp up on that last 10-20% of throttle. I think it's the last 10. So I've got the brake applied, I'm cranking throttle in, and then you can hear it just go wee! And that's the last percent of the throttle there, just totally breaking loose. I'm going to try to do a burnout here and see if I can get this to work. So. Anyway, you can see most of that is me driving with the brake. I'm just screwing with the throttle for fun, but most of the real control is coming from the brake. And you can see as I apply the brake here, it'll do different things. Anyway, I don't want to waste your time with all that, but you'll notice the with the brakes down here while this is in replay, a lot of the car control comes from the brake. And whenever the car gets loose, if we get back to the front stretch here, see, I'm dragging the brake right there. Keeps the back wheels from spinning. See how I keep the brake applied there? We call that the 2-foot mash. It's a lot of footwork to learn, but I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to try once more to see if I can show you this throttle. If you watch the green down here, this do you hear it? You can hear it go woo, and then our motor just screams. So that's all for today. I just thought I'd show you that and why I have the brakes like that, because I can apply so much pedal and get so little brake. Hope it helped you.